I'm Vinnie Politan, the subject of my investigation, the doomsday cult killer, Lori Daybell. She's a child killer, the worst of the worst. But she was able to escape the death penalty because of prosecutorial mistakes in Idaho. And now she's putting on a show in another murder trial in Arizona. Here's the story. Lori Daybell already serving life sentences in Idaho for the murders of her two youngest children and conspiring in the death of her fifth husband's first wife, now facing additional charges in Arizona in Maricopa County. She stands trial accused of conspiring with her brother Alex Cox to murder her fourth husband Charles Vallow in 2019. Prosecutors allege the motive was to collect $1 million in life insurance and to facilitate her marriage to Chad Daybell, an author of apocalyptic fiction. Cox, who fatally shot Charles, claimed self-defense and died later that year while on the toilet. Lori Daybell has chosen to represent herself and during the course of the trial has been cross-examining witnesses, including her own brother, Adam Cox. If convicted, Lori faces life imprisonment in Arizona, but this won't be her last trial, as she also awaits trial for allegedly conspiring to murder her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. What a story. What an incredible tragedy. All the carnage, all the bodies, all the dead people because of Lori Daybell and Chad Daybell. So Lori representing herself in this case, you know, what does she have to lose? She's representing herself. She gave an opening statement, and I want to go back to that opening statement because during the opening statement, she tells her story about what happened that day, because don't forget, there were 5 people there that day. 4 of them are dead. She's the only one left. Take a listen.
The evidence will show that Charles began to scream at me when I refused to hand him his phone. And Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat. The evidence will show that Alex then intervened to protect Tylee from being hit with the bat. He did not have a gun. He was not wearing a shirt. He was pulling up his jeans because he just woke up and came into the room where he heard the screaming. The evidence will show that Alex and Charles got into a physical struggle for the bat and fell onto the ground. The evidence will show that after this struggle on the ground between Charles and Alex, that Charles prevailed with the bat and began to come towards me with the bat as I ran away from him into the kitchen. The evidence will show that at some point while I was running away from Charles, who was chasing me with the bat, that Alex apparently retrieved his gun. The evidence will show that I ran outside to the children and that Alex shot Charles in self-defense. As the state has mentioned, they are alleging that insurance money was my motive. Social Security was my motive. Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime.
She has a story to tell. She's doing life in prison already. She's not getting out. She knows she's not getting out. I don't think she's delusional about that, although maybe she is. But because of that, where you're talking about a trial, a murder trial, where you're seemingly playing with house money, like whether you're going to do life in prison or life in prison followed by life in prison, right? So that brings me to the first question in my investigation. And it's about Lori and her defense. Why wouldn't Lori testify? She told her story in the open. She's got seemingly nothing to lose here at trial. So why wouldn't Lori testify? Tell her story to the jury. Here with us, she's outside the courthouse in Phoenix. She's been inside the courtroom for the entire trial. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft and psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, also with us. All right, Kelly, I'll begin with you out in Phoenix, working late. We appreciate it so much. Why wouldn't she testify? Is there a reason why she wouldn't testify?
Well, one thing, Vinny, she still could, because she has not officially rested her case. So she is expected to do that in front of the jury next week. But what she has told the judge is that as of right now, she is not planning to testify. She is not planning to put on a case. Now, there was a pretrial motion that took place before this trial began, in which one of the items that was discussed was, will the information about Lori killing her children come into play if she takes the stand? And the state mentioned during that pretrial hearing that it wanted to bring forth that evidence to impeach her if she took the stand. Now, the judge did tell Lori during that hearing that she could put forth a motion, that they still would hear that she was convicted of some serious crimes, but maybe would not hear exactly what they were. So he discussed this with Lori at length. What she ended up doing there is still to be determined, because we didn't hear that she put forth any sort of motion, but it appears that she is making a decision not to testify because she does not want that kind of information brought forth to the jury.
Okay, Dr. Jenny Lacy, what Kelly just described is like a very logical, defensive reason, right? Okay, if I do this, then the jury might hear that. Let's talk about Lori Daybell, the person, though. She's in prison for the rest of her life. She knows she's in prison for the rest of her life. She told her story in her opening statement. Why do you think there's more to it? Do you think she's focused in on the legal strategy of trying to win this case versus having her opportunity once again to say whatever she wants to say?
Well, Vinny, what I would share is that when I think about it from a psychological perspective, right? So her not testifying, this can help her maintain like this mystique, and it can avoid her allowing the jurors to not directly assess her credibility because of the position that she's taking and representing herself. So I would probably suggest that her decision is really a careful calculation about jury perception and her narrative control, despite, you know, this unusual choice of hers. But I would lean on the perspective that it's her need to maintain control, because she can control the narrative, and it also evades almost this direct cross-examination of her credibility by the jurors witnessing her. So she can maintain control, she can control the narrative, and it also creates this level of mystique around her. So I would probably suggest it's very intentional on her part where she sits.
Let's take a listen to some of her cross-examination. This was an interesting moment with Kay Woodcock, who's her sister-in-law, her former sister-in-law, the one who got the $1 million from her brother, Charles, life insurance instead of Lori getting it. Lori had an opportunity to cross-examine her. Take a look at how it went.
Ms. Woodcock, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with Alex Cox to kill my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, but I saw a ton of evidence that did.
That's a fascinating moment, I think, because Kay was ready and she was not ready. But what I'm getting from you, Kelly, and there's a theme where she uses that line a lot. Do you think that part of what's going on is she believes she can win and she wants to prove that she's better than her lawyers?
I believe she feels she can win, Vinny. That was her go-to line. She asked Kay Woodcock that. She asked her brother, Adam Cox, that on the stand as well. That was the first time that we heard that. So he went first, Adam Cox, then Kay Woodcock, and she asked him, did you see or hear anything that would indicate that I conspired with my brother to kill Charles Vallow? And both of those witnesses said no. I believe she really feels that she had some strong questions on cross-examination, and that was one of them.
Let's take a look at another moment of cross-examination here on one of the detectives.
Did you interview our mother, Janice Cox?
I did not.
Did you read or watch her interview?
I have not.
Did you interview our sister, Summer Shiflett?
I did not.
Did you read or watch her interview?
No.
Did you interview our father, Barry Cox?
No.
Did you read or watch his interview?
No.
Like, did you ask my mother what she meant in that text message when she wrote it?
No.
Did you ask my sister what she meant in those text messages?
No.
Did you ask Melanie, my niece, what she meant in those text messages?
No.
Did you ask me what I meant in those text messages?
I couldn't.
She's almost on a roll like a criminal defense attorney doing cross-examination there. So, Dr. J.D. Lacey, if she thinks she can win, and let's say she won, right, and the jury finds her not guilty, what does that mean, do you think, to her, a woman who's been convicted of murdering her own children, who will serve the rest of her life in prison?
Well, what that would suggest to me is that what we're already reviewing is that she potentially has these narcissistic traits and tendencies. So that would further inflate what she probably believes to be true about herself. And that is that she is in control and that she is capable and that she's taking on this role, that she's probably compartmentalizing the things that she does not necessarily want to be seen. So this would further inflate her sense of self and her grandiose thoughts about who she is and her power that she is feeling like she's displaying by taking on this role, and feeling probably like she's doing a good job in her confidence, that's appearing very confident as she's cross-examining and able to separate her past relationship with the people that she's cross-examining.
Kelly, what are you seeing from her inside the courtroom? Does she have an air of confidence at all?
She absolutely does. She walks in, Vinnie, and she smiles at the prosecution table, at their counsel tables, and the prosecutors. So there's a paralegal at the prosecutor's table, and then the prosecutor, and then they have an investigator sitting in the middle. Neither of them are looking at her when she makes her way into the courtroom. But then when she smiles at them, she also looks back at the people in the gallery and smiles at them, at several of the people in the gallery. She walks in very confidently. When she goes up and begins her cross-examination of the witnesses, she does so confidently, especially at the end, Vinnie, which may be coming a little bit too late for her, but she really did seem like she got on a roll with Detective Duncan in regard to the way she was asking questions, her form of the way that she was asking the questions, and she could understand the objections being made, and when the judge would tell her to rephrase the questions, she was able to do so in the proper form.
And you know what's interesting? She'll have another trial for the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux, so she'll have another shot at all this. You know, this is unreal. Okay, guests are staying with us. Coming up next, what is Lori's best evidence?
The biggest trials of the year are here on Court TV. Live in the Arizona courtroom as convicted cult mom killer Lori Daybell represents herself.
She wanted to have her day in court, so here we are.
And in Massachusetts as Karen Reed faces a jury again.
She's not afraid to take the stand.
The trials everyone is talking about.
You wish that you could clarify?
He'll be clarified one day, Matt.
Are all on Court TV.
Then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there, and so he came out into the main room, and I guess whatever.
What's your brother's name?
Alex. He's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever. And then, I was all.
And he
quickly.
And he hit your brother with the bat while they were grappling and stuff.
Yeah, Yes, he was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around.
Okay, so there's Lori telling the story, right? The story that she may not tell on the witness stand, the story that she told in her opening statement, but opening statements are not evidence. Just a reminder, opening statements, even if it comes from the defendant acting as their own attorney, is not evidence in the case. Hopefully the jury understands that. The only evidence comes from the witness stand and from the exhibits in the case. Her daughter, Tylee, who was there as well, was a teenager, she gave a statement as well, and it seemed pretty consistent with what we heard.
I fell to the ground, and then my uncle I saw him take a step back, so my uncle, I think, grabbed him and kind of took him back so we couldn't like do anything.
You saw your stepdad like take a step back?
Take a step back because he was really close to begin with, and then and so my mom said to go with JJ, and so I ran out the door. Eventually, my mom came out, and then we left from there.
Okay.
Amazingly, Tylee would have been Lori's best witness. Someone who was there, who could talk about this struggle, this self-defense, the violence of, the alleged violence of Charles Vallow, would have been Lori's best witness. But unfortunately, Lori murdered her, so she's not available. And because she murdered her, they can't play her interview with investigators. Huh. So with that out the door, that brings us to the next question in our investigation. What is Lori's best evidence? Since she murdered her best witness, what is her best evidence? Still with us, Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, and joining us, retired police commander, religious cult expert, host of Profiling Evil podcast, and author of the book Deceived, Mike King is here as well. All right, Kelly, you've been there for the whole case, the whole trial. What is the big piece of evidence, her best piece of evidence in this case?
Well, I do think there are a few things that we can point to for Lori's side. One, she did poke a lot of holes into the investigation that was conducted by the Chandler Police Department. One, she was asking why they didn't do a DNA test on the bat. She is saying that if they had, they would have been able to get some information regarding, did Alex Cox even touch the bat? What about Charles' fingerprints? What about DNA from him? What about blood from Alex if Charles hit Alex over the head with that bat? Would there be blood? The detective on the stand said that we couldn't see any of the blood, so we would have seen a marking of the blood, a dried blood or such, but there was none, so we did not do any DNA testing of the bat. But Lori focused on that. She also said that you did not take Alex Cox's phone that day, and the detective, Detective Duncan, said on the stand, that is something that I absolutely would have done. Also, Lori did talk about, and the state says the motive is money here, Lori talked about in her opening, although not evidence, she talked about the fact that it is not a crime to have a life insurance policy on your spouse. And she has gotten out several times in this case that Charles had a $2 million life insurance policy on her. Even though she asked witnesses about that, they said they didn't know that. She did make that very clear to the jury.
Mike King, are you concerned with the way the case was investigated and the way it is playing out here in terms of some of the evidence that Lori has available to her to argue to this jury?
I'm not, Vinny. I think that she's made some great points. She's helped create some question in the jury's mind about whether the police investigation was thorough. I think back on my investigations and many officers that I worked with, I can't think of a case that I didn't, with hindsight, wish that I'd have done something along the lines. Now, some of those basic things like getting DNA swabs and other kinds of things you would think in an unsolved case is something that you would do. But in this particular case, I thought the detective did a pretty good argument back saying, listen, everything else was pointing to the answers and everything else was corroborating the evidence that we had. And so we really didn't need to do that. But we're talking 5 years later, and they still haven't tested that. And it seems like it would be just such an easy thing to check off the box, and one that I'm sure today they're wishing they had done. But when you look at these cases, and you have to look at them as an investigator in totality, I think that they've got enough that they're going to be able to probably get a conviction out of this.
All right, I want you to listen, though, to this. This was the cross-examination of Adam Cox.
Did you see with your eyes, or hear with your ears, or personally witness me conspire with my brother, Alex Cox, to murder my husband, Charles Vallow?
No.
Thank you. No more questions.
All right, Mike, that's another theme, and Kelly spoke about this, that has sort of built up in Lori's defense here, is the lack of direct conspiracy evidence, right? A co-conspirator coming in to testify, some sort of a recording or a witness to a conversation of the conspiracy. Is that her best evidence here, that at the lack of the direct evidence of the conspiracy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting challenge that they've got to overcome. And this is where it's really going to fall on the shoulders of that prosecutor to bring this circumstantial case together and to talk about the things that really are most important in this thing. Bring out things that maybe aren't getting a whole lot of press time, but I think are really important, like why was Alex, who lives apparently in the area, spending the night there with a weapon and is ready to go and is texting back and forth? That to me is something that's really important. Why is Charles told, come here at this time and take JJ? Why does she keep the phone knowing that that phone is creating this heightened moment of anger and frustration instead of just giving the phone back? And I think if the prosecution will work all of these things into the messaging, not to mention what I think has been some pretty powerful circumstantial digital evidence coming off of those text messages and other recordings, I think they're going to be able to do this.
All right, stay where you are, folks. We've got more to get to. Coming up next, what is the state's proof of a conspiracy? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the doomsday cult killer, Lori Daybell. She really has become one of the most notorious killers in recent court TV history. And honestly, that's not a good thing. Here's her story. Lori Daybell, born in 1973 in Southern California, was raised in a devout Mormon household. Her early life appeared conventional, marked by multiple marriages and motherhood. She had a son, Colby, with her second husband, and a daughter, Tylee, with her third. In 2006, she married Charles Vallow, and together they adopted Joshua J.J. Vallow, Charles' grandnephew. By all accounts, Lori at that time was a devoted mother. However, her life took a dark turn after she met Chad Daybell, a self-published author with apocalyptic beliefs. Embracing his doomsday ideology, Lori's behavior changed dramatically. She began referring to loved ones as zombies and believed she was a divine figure destined to lead 144,000 souls in the end times. In 2019, her husband Charles was fatally shot by her brother Alex Cox under suspicious circumstances. Later that year, Lori's children, Tylee and JJ, vanished. Their remains were discovered in 2020 on Chad's property in Idaho. Lori was convicted of their murders and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Now she's on trial for conspiring to murder Charles in Arizona. So that's important what the charges are here. Conspiracy to commit murder. She didn't pull the trigger. Her brother Alex did. So it's a conspiracy with Alex. Now, a lot of times in conspiracy cases, one co-conspirator sometimes gets a deal and flips on the other, and it's easy to get that evidence of what happened. But Alex Cox died on the toilet, so he's not here to testify. He's not here to face charges. So it's just Lori for conspiracy with someone who is now no longer alive. But that's not the way she sees this case. And she told the jury in her opening statement what this case really was. Take a look.
The evidence will show that during the months of June and July, that my husband, Charles Vallow, began to send me threatening text messages. These messages were seen by my sister Summer, and that worried her. The evidence will show that Chandler police treated this incident as self-defense.
And object to that?
Objection sustained. The jury should disregard that.
A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy. Thank you.
It's a tragedy, not a conspiracy. That's what she's saying. So that brings us to the next question in our investigation. And it's really the most important question for the jury. What is the state's proof of a conspiracy? What is the proof? They've got to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Here with us, she's outside the courthouse in Phoenix, where she's been inside the courtroom for the entire trial. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, always working overtime for us. So appreciated. And retired police commander, religious cult expert, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and author of the book Deceived, Mike King, with us as well. Okay, I first want to take a listen to the prosecutor reading a text message from Lori to the prophet, Chad Daybell, her current husband, the man who changed her life. Let's take a listen.
Do we see on July 18th at 12:18 Arizona time? So I talked to the insurance company. He changed it in March. So it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. They can't tell me to whom, of course, but it's done. I'll still get the $4,000 a month from Social Security?
Yes.
Before we got rid of him, Kelly Craft, how are we interpreting that? That it's her and Alex got rid of him, or her and Chad got rid of him, or all three of them got rid of him? What's the interpretation of that, and is that proof of a conspiracy?
The digital evidence, Vinnie, in this case, it's very good evidence from the state's perspective, because the state has said that the motive here, although the state does not have to prove motive, but they have said it's money, that $1 million life insurance policy. And so now you have this image of Lori sending the man who she now has gotten married to, or she hasn't gotten married to him yet, but this is just weeks after Charles Vallow's killing. So this is just weeks later, she sends Chad Daybell this image of the life insurance policy. So you have to contrast that with how we saw Lori giving her opening statement and how she was crying about her husband. And then it starts to come out that she was exchanging very love-like messages with this other man and indicating that she was having a love affair with him and that she eventually married him several months after Charles Vallow's death. So that digital evidence is huge, especially another text, Vinnie, in which she is saying to her brother, Alex Cox, that in a few days, this is a few days before Charles Vallow was shot and killed, I will be like Nephi, and so will you.
Please explain that.
Yes, and so the state wanted the witness to explain that and asked several witnesses about who Nephi was. And so what Lori was saying is that there's this situation where the state is making it seem like because she was acting like Nephi, that would mean an order to kill. So in the Book of Mormon, and I am not Mormon, but from what
well, let's do this, Kelly. Kelly, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'll let Mike jump in on this one. He may know this one a little bit better.
I'll tell you what, Vinny, the thing that's so interesting to me is this Nephi that they're speaking of in that canon of scripture gets this revelation because they're trying to get records that date back in their family history and in the church's history, or he's standing as a prophet, and he's sent by a prophet to go and get these records. And he's thrown out of the city and actually chased out, and he's fearful that the guy that's chasing him is going to kill him. And he receives this revelation, or actually an appearance from an angel who says, hey, go back and get the plates from Laban. And let me tell you this much, Nephi, that it is better that one man, Laban, should perish than a whole nation dwindle in unbelief. And so I found it so interesting because this is a really powerful canon of scripture. When you think about things like Abraham being told to sacrifice his son, or Elijah getting rid of the priests of Baal, it's not unknown or something that's new found in religion that these kinds of things come up. But the thing that I found interesting is she tried to muddy the water by saying, hey, in this canon of scripture, there are 4 different Nephis. Well, there was only one that received a revelation that he should go and kill somebody. And she's saying to the very guy who happens to be spending the night in her house, who happens to have a gun, who happens to be there at the critical moment, that you and I are going to be like Nephi. And to me, that's really frightening.
Okay, Kelly, I want to come back to you now, and I wanted to go to Mike on that to get that explanation. Does the jury walk away with as clear an explanation as we just got from Mike King inside that courtroom?
No, and that was an excellent explanation. But Lori was saying that this would be an order to kill. And where in those text messages did I give anyone an order to kill? And Lori got that out on cross-examination, what Mike was saying, that there are several books of Nephi or several stories of Nephi. So if you're a juror there and you don't have this religious background, you don't know. You believe what she is saying, that there are several ways to interpret these text messages that she was sending. It has nothing to do with what the state is trying to say, which was Lori was giving her brother orders to kill.
All right, so Mike, from your perspective, what are your thoughts here in terms of proving this case? You pointed out a bunch of pieces of evidence, circumstantial in nature, right? But I believe, I'm a strong believer in circumstantial evidence. It seems like she's going to lean on there's no direct evidence. Do you believe there's any direct evidence of a conspiracy?
Well, yeah, I do, Vinny, because I keep going back to this digital chain that we're starting to see built now. We have not only what we've just talked about, but we have Charles Vallow finding an email that really was written by Lori trying to put across the guys to get her lover, Chad Daybell, to come to Arizona and meet with her. And he throws up the flags and lets not only Lori know that he knows what they're up to, but he lets Chad know what he's up against and what he's discovered. And the thing that's so intriguing about that is that's 2 days before this thing. Here's a guy that's going to expose these two having an affair. And then you've got all of the stuff that was recovered from that iCloud account that talks about dark spirits and zombies and people being possessed, including Charles being a dark spirit, and that we got to get rid of Ned. And I think if the prosecution can bring all that in and keep reminding the jury that this isn't about Nephi, this is about this Nephi story and this email between Lori and Chad, and Adam Cox's emails, and Alex Cox's phone data, and on, that they're going to be able to build a case and they're going to be able to convict her.
So I want to play quickly a detective here on direct talking about how everything was put into motion that day.
Did Lori ever tell you during your interview that Charles started this argument?
No.
During your interview of Lori Vallow, was it always her saying that it was her that started this argument because she would not give Charles back his phone?
Correct.
So she told you that she was afraid of Charles coming over, invited her brother over to protect her, and then she started a fight by refusing to give Charles back his phone.
Correct.
And I think we all can see where prosecutors are going with that. All the pieces are put into place by Lori Daybell. We're out of time for this segment. Big thank you to Mike King. Thank you for your insight, as always, on many different levels. We appreciate it. Kelly's going to stick around. Still to come, is Lori enjoying this trial?
Did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
I'm praying to God, please don't let it happen.
How can we believe you? On the next Interview with a Killer.
The entire family was slaughtered, all choked to death by that smoke and terror.
I tried to get them out. If I could give my life for this, I would. I wish to God it had never happened.
That's not really how God works, is it?
Interview with a Killer. New episode, Sunday at 8 on Court TV.
Did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
Charles was in the process of a divorce.
He was not in the process of a divorce. Did it surprise you to find that out? You've seen it all on TV where we're not getting divorced. Do you go on dates with married men? Naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
Lori Daybell confronting the woman who dated Charles and went on a date with him the night before Alex, her brother, shot and killed him. And there she is. going at it. Not the only moment during this trial where she has sort of gotten into that role of real cross-examination. Take a look here as she crosses Detective Duncan.
So you're the case agent.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see if that was the case.
So you're the case agent, and you don't know if the person who shot my husband's phone was ever...
Yeah. At this moment, I don't recall.
I'm asking you to speak as a case agent now if you know if it was done or not. Do you think that would be important to your investigation?
Absolutely, knowing what we know now, yes.
Okay, you're a detective, right?
Correct.
You have to look at all the angles, right?
Correct.
You don't know what happened, right? You just stated that you weren't there, right?
Correct.
So wouldn't that be crucial information that the police department didn't bother to take?
Once again, I don't know what the conversation with Detective Moffat and Alex was and what his reasoning for not. Would I have taken it? Yes.
Interesting moments there. And think about what the rest of her life is like right now. It's 3 hots and a cot, right? She's been locked up for a long, long time. Now she's out. She's in the courtroom. She's able to control the people who investigated her, members of her family, and ask them questions, and they have to answer what she's saying. Then she gets to speak directly to the jury. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. It's about Lori. Is Lori enjoying this trial? I understand it's a murder trial, but it's not like if she wins, she's going home. So I don't think you're as concerned about the outcome, although she might be, but is she enjoying the process? Is she enjoying the journey? With us, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, and I spoke too soon, still with us, Mike King. Okay. Dr. Janie Lacey, are you seeing someone here that might be enjoying these moments, this trial, even though it is her own murder trial?
Well, Vinnie, what I am seeing is definitely appears that she is performing this very specific role before the jury, right? She's smiling at times. She's showing strategic emotion. So using this courtroom as her playground. But yet we don't see any emotion when it came to, or minimum emotion, I should say, when it came to her husband. But we saw her smiling at her son. And, we see her taking this intense role, being able to cross-examine him, examine those who at one point had power over her. So now her being in this perceived power position, and then also at times having this composed demeanor, it can suggest a lot of things about what's happening inside of her. So I would say that she looks and appears to be enjoying this time as her playground and being able to have control and be able to show up in a certain narrative.
And Mike, when we talk about her history, she's been in the spotlight before. She was Miss or Mrs. I think was it Clayton County, Texas, one of the counties in Texas, and then was in the Mrs. Texas competition. I think that was 2004. That same year, she was on, I believe, was it Wheel of Fortune? I think it was Wheel of Fortune. And one other game show as well. So this is someone who's been in the spotlight before, the performing part of it. Do you think that's part of what's going on here?
Well, I hate to take advantage of a religious cult to say this, but amen to Dr. Lacey. And yes, I absolutely think this is her theater. And this courtroom has become her stage, and she is acting out and enjoying this thing very much. Now, I think that she's starting to wane in that excitement and in that enjoyable experience. And it will be great to have Kelly reporting back about what she's doing on Monday, because she seemed pretty deflated by the end of the day on day 7. And to me, that either means she's throwing in the towel or she's preparing for this opportunity where she leaves us all hanging, that she's going to decide whether or not she's coming back for an encore.
Yeah, she has the opportunity. She can call witnesses. She can testify herself. although she's initially said she wasn't doing that. I want you to take a listen to Megan Connor, Lori's cousin, who was on the show on April 2nd, talking about this issue.
I do think she's enjoying it. I do think that she is using this as an opportunity to, to be in the spotlight for the last time. She's got one more trial after this one, but I think she does know that her time in the spotlight is limited, and I think she does know that after this, that she's going back to prison in Idaho, and that she's going to fade from view, and I think that probably bothers her. I think she does enjoy the attention. I think that's part of the reason she decided to represent herself.
That's the reality, Dr. Janie Lacey, that sometimes criminal defendants who are a little bit off, between the ears, don't realize they have these moments of the attention that you get for being on trial, even more attention for representing yourself, and then knowing, or maybe not realizing, that once that moment is over, it's over forever, like forever. Do you think she has an understanding of that makes this more important for her, or do you think she might be somewhat oblivious to that moment fleeting?
I would suggest, Vinnie, that she has an understanding that she's getting what we would call a certain level of supply, right? Especially when we look at narcissism, is that there's a supply that you get from the attention. There's supply that you get from everyone looking at you. So in her, what we're looking at is this controlled presentation. So it's reflecting that she's used to having a specific public image, as you mentioned, her not being new to being on certain types of platforms. But there's definitely this, as you're saying, between her ears, we'll look at probably some levels of mental illness here, that there's this disconnect between her behavior and the severity of the situation, which can indicate to me that she's used to compartmentalizing. And if she's used to compartmentalizing, then she's able to have different parts of her that she can bring forward. And when she's in that certain parts of her, she's truly immersed in that part. And right now, the courtroom is we're watching all of that parts being played for her. But that would indicate to me in the past that she's used to compartmentalizing and putting things in little folders so that she can be what she needs to be in the moment.
Mike, we only have about 10 seconds here. Do you think her big finish will be taking the stand or an over-the-top closing argument?
I kind of feel like she's got to do an over-the-top closing argument, Vinnie, and she's got to call the rest of us to repentance in whatever way it is that she's going to do that she gets across the point that she was doing the right thing and everyone else sinned.
Mike King and Dr. Janie Lacey, thank you both so much. We appreciate your time and insight. Okay, trying to understand Lori Daybell is not possible, but what I do understand is her motivation for murder. She fell in love with a loser who had no money. So she wanted life insurance and Social Security benefits without any of the costs that come along with taking care of children. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the definition of evil. Killing children for money. But I still don't know why she would do that to be with a loser like Chad Daybell. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.